Have you ever wondered what Hollywood's biggest names were really like when the camera stopped rolling? Behind the polished smiles and graceful performances, some of the most admired stars were known for moods that kept everyone on edge. Here are the actors whose quiet intensity on screen masked tempers and tension off it. Marlon Brando. Marlon Brando rose to legendary status with powerful performances in films such as A Streetcar Named Desire 1951 and On the Waterfront 1954. His Oscar-winning turn in On the Waterfront cemented him as the face of a new, raw acting style, muscular, emotionally charged, and rebellious. Audiences adored him as the brooding heartthrob and anti-hero whose intensity felt deeply grounded. But behind that handsome, magnetic public image, Brando cultivated a backstage reputation for erratic behavior, mood swings, and unpredictability. On set, colleagues and crew members recount that Brando would demand dozens of takes and shift his performance night to night. Actress Kim Hunter, his co-star in Streetcar, recalled that he had a different sort of attitude toward each of the belongings every night. Sometimes it would lead me into getting into quite a fight with him. Through such stories, the message is clear. Even his fellow actors often didn't know what they would face when Brando stepped onto the set. One frequently cited anecdote concerns Guys and Dolls 1955, where Brando reportedly insisted on so many takes of a cheesecake eating scene that singer-actor Frank Sinatra exploded in frustration. "How much cake do you think I can eat?" Crew accounts suggest Brando engineered subtle errors or changes in his blocking or tone so that each take would require another. On later projects, such as The Island of Dr. Moreau 1996 and Apocalypse Now 1979, his behavior became even more extreme, refusing to memorize his lines, requiring earpieces or cue cards, arriving on set late, and apparently demanding rewrites or special accommodations. Director Francis Ford Coppola said Brando was like a kid, very irresponsible during Apocalypse Now. The paradox of Brando's professional persona is compelling. As an actor, he revolutionized performance with emotional authenticity. As a person on set, he became synonymous with chaos, unpredictability, and perhaps a deep dissatisfaction with the system that made him famous. His public charisma masked a private man who could be moody, disdainful of direction, and dangerously mercurial, someone whose presence on a film still meant star power, and whose mood could mean production delays. In the end, the actor who once thundered Stella on Broadway left many of his collaborators saying they never knew which version of Marlon Brando would show up on set. Errol Flynn. Errol Flynn stormed into public consciousness as Hollywood's ultimate charmer, rising to fame with films like Captain Blood 1935 and The Adventures of Robin Hood 1938. On screen, he embodied daring romance and heroic vitality, capturing the public's imagination as a charismatic, razor-tipped adventurer. Yet behind that iconic on-screen image lay a real-life persona steeped in reckless energy, uncontained appetites, and near-constant unpredictability. Flynn's autobiography, My Wicked, Wicked Ways, published posthumously in 1959, laid bare many of his indulgences and scandals. From early years in Tasmania and the South Seas, Flynn's life was lived at high velocity. He later admitted to risky exploits in New Guinea and other outposts, part of a self-image of constant danger and escape. His rise in Hollywood collided with a lifestyle that seldom paused: heavy drinking, high-speed travel, late nights, and an insatiable appetite for adventure both on and off set. On production sets, his reputation grew for behavior that kept crews uneasy. He was known to arrive intoxicated, improvise stunts or scenes without warning, and demand that he be handled on his own terms. The atmosphere on set was often one of tension. Cast and crew felt they might witness brilliance on film, but could just as easily encounter chaos behind the camera. Beyond set antics, Flynn's off-screen life added to his wild legend. His love affairs, tabloid scandals, financial missteps, and brushes with the law painted a picture of a man for whom self-destruction and hero worship walked hand in hand. One of the major turning points was a 1943 trial for statutory rape, which shook his public standing even while he remained a box office draw. As his physical health and finances deteriorated in the 1950s, his career waned. Meanwhile, the stories of his legendary shenanigans became part of Hollywood lore. In sum, Flynn thrilled audiences as the daring adventurer on screen. Yet off-screen, he carved out a reputation as a risk-taking, volatile figure whose presence could exhilarate or unsettle. The same actor whose rope-swinging, sword-fighting heroics defined an era also left many colleagues guarded around him, aware that the man behind the camera might be as unpredictable as the roles he played. His dual legacy remains: a beloved cinematic icon and a cautionary tale of the cost of living life at full throttle. Ava Gardner. Ava Gardner emerged as one of Hollywood's most radiant stars of the studio era, her on-screen presence defined by luminous beauty and assured performances in films like The Killers 1946 and Mogambo 1953. The public admired her as a glamorous, free-spirited leading lady whose appearance and poise embodied the era's ideal of star glamour. Yet behind the polished exterior, Gardner carried a decidedly restless nature, and the atmosphere on many sets revealed a fearless, unpredictable personality that could unsettle even veteran colleagues. Raised in a modest North Carolina family, Gardner's early life was marked by upheaval. Her father died when she was still a teenager, and the family lost their farm during the Depression. Her background, she later reflected, left her wary of certainties and restless for change. When she signed with MGM in 1941, she initially accepted early minor roles but soon proved herself a compelling presence on screen. On film sets and off-camera, Gardner's reputation for wildness grew. During the troubled African location shoot for Mogambo, for example, she bathed outdoors in a canvas tub and publicly defied local British colonial officials who objected to her casual nudity, a step that underscored both her defiance and her disregard for studio or social constraints. Her personal life added further texture. High-profile marriages to Mickey Rooney, Artie Shaw, and Frank Sinatra, and a decades-long association with billionaire Howard Hughes helped keep her tabloid life active. Despite her glamorous public image, Gardner's on-set behavior could keep others alert. Colleagues recall moments of sharpness, of sudden mood shifts, or of her challenging directors and producers when she felt constrained. One industry profile described her as blunt, profane, and often searingly intelligent during candid interviews late in life. At the same time, those who worked closely with her also noted the warmth she could display. For example, one co-star said that beneath the firebrand image, Gardner could be rich and warm and human, reminding people that the star was more than her myth. In short, Ava Gardner represented the paradox of golden age stardom. She captivated audiences as one of cinema's most alluring leading ladies, yet behind the scenes she carved a reputation for impulsiveness, defiance, and occasional chaos. The same woman who projected unflappable glamour on screen also kept the cast and crew aware that when Ava Gardner arrived on set, the light would shine, but the air might crackle. Katharine Hepburn. Katharine Hepburn was adored by audiences for her independent spirit and charm, earning 4 Academy Awards and becoming an emblem of modern womanhood in Hollywood. In films like The Philadelphia Story, 1940, and Woman of the Year, 1942, she portrayed lively, self-possessed heroines who commanded respect and defied convention. On screen, she appeared effortlessly charismatic, witty, and self-reliant. Off-screen, however, Hepburn's reputation among directors, crew, and co-stars was far more formidable. She arrived prepared, insisted on her own terms, and tolerated little nonsense. Hepburn's professionalism was legendary. She was famously punctual in private, and she shunned the Hollywood publicity machine. Sources describe how she once rejected demands to behave like the typical star, choosing instead to wear trousers in public and on set, a decision studios tried to challenge. According to several accounts, when her trousers were removed by the studio wardrobe department at RKO, she walked around the lot in underwear until her trousers were returned. A Time profile noted that in her youth, she was known as arrogant and overbearing, and many people in the studio system considered her difficult. Her insistence on strict schedules, respectful behavior, and her own working methods could make even seasoned film crews uneasy. A crew member recalled that any man attempting to flirt with or distract her on set learned quickly that Hepburn had zero patience for delays or social pleasantries interfering with work. Her quiet intensity and refusal to indulge in Hollywood social rituals earned her the nickname the Iron Lady behind the scenes, not because she was cruel, but because she demanded discipline and was uncompromising when it came to her craft. Yet Hepburn was far from cold. Those who worked closely with her saw another side. Biographers say that despite her hard edge on set persona, she had genuine warmth and loyalty in private. Writer Barbara Leeming described how meeting Hepburn revealed a person who was gaunt, unreachable, and suspicious, someone who kept others at a distance until they proved themselves. Among her longtime collaborators was Spencer Tracy, with whom she had both a celebrated professional and personal relationship. Even there, though, Hepburn's focus remained her work, not the spotlight around her life. In the public eye, Hepburn remained an icon of wit and resilience. Privately, she was deeply serious about her career, her independence, and how she lived. Her presence on a film set usually signaled someone who knew exactly what she wanted and expected others to respect it. In short, Hepburn's star persona of spirited modernity hid a backstage reality where respect, boundaries, and control were her currency. The result? A beloved movie star whose reputation for being fearless and unflinching off camera only enhanced her legend. Tallulah Bankhead. Born into a politically prominent Alabama family in 1902, Tallulah Bankhead was a star whose on-screen and stage presence radiated glamour, audacity, and larger-than-life personality. And behind the scenes, she had a reputation that kept cast and crew on their toes. She rejected the expected path of decorum and instead embraced performance, spectacle, and a restless appetite for attention. In public, she dazzled. Her husky voice, striking features, and fearless comportment made her a magnet on stage and film alike. One of her signature screen roles came in Lifeboat 1944, directed by Alfred Hitchcock, in which she played a savvy journalist stranded at sea. On that production, she reportedly refused to wear underwear beneath her costume, climbing the ladder to the lifeboat ahead of the crew and deliberately shocking on-set observers. When complaints reached Hitchcock, he quipped that it was makeup or perhaps hairdressing that should intervene. Meanwhile, her film career never fully matched her stage success. Critics cite her unconventional behavior and refusal to conform to studio norms as key factors. Off-camera, Bankhead's reputation for wild habits was legendary. She was known to chain smoke approximately 100 cigarettes a day and drink large quantities of bourbon and gin, a lifestyle remarked upon even decades later. Her parties were notorious for pushing the boundaries of propriety, with reports of nudity, improvised antics, and disregard for conventional behavior. In London and Hollywood alike, she flouted studio expectations, rarely showing deference to authority. Bankhead also embraced taboo-breaking attitudes. She openly referenced her affairs, both with men and women, and earned a reputation for being self-defined, unapologetic, and unpredictable. One biographer notes she was very promiscuous, a self-proclaimed bisexual. Long before there was a modern celebrity scandal, she was doing things in the 1930s and 40s that most actresses wouldn't dream of doing now. Crew members and directors learned that working around her meant expecting the unexpected. Rather than tiptoe around silence, they often found themselves in the presence of someone who seemed to court chaos as a signature style. Yet despite the volatility, Bankhead remained a draw. Studio heads continued to cast her not simply because she could act, but because her off-screen legend fed attention and intrigue. On sets, many felt it was easier to let her antics roll than to fight them. Better to roll camera than risk conflict. Stories persist of her lighting up a set, then lighting up a cigarette mid-take, of her hosting midnight gatherings where the rules ceased to apply, of her daring gestures that left others awed and wary in equal measure. In summary, Tallulah Bankhead captivated audiences as a glamorous, fearless performer, but behind that image lay a personality that delighted in defiance and chaos. In Hollywood's golden era, she earned the title of the ultimate bad girl, one whose public allure masked a backstage atmosphere where respect, fear, and unpredictability lived side by side. Her legacy remains complicated. A brilliant performer, an unforgettable character, and someone whose brilliance may have overshadowed her self-destruction. Bette Davis. Bette Davis became a towering force of Hollywood's golden age through powerhouse performances in films such as Of Human Bondage 1934 and All About Eve 1950. On screen, she was fearless, emotionally intense, and completely in command, transforming minor roles into major statements and earning a reputation for taking on characters with grit and complexity. Critics noted that even in her early years, she brought a tangy, bittersweet spiciness to roles in period dramas and melodramas alike. Off-screen, however, Davis had a backstage persona that was far from the demure lady of classical Hollywood glamour. Colleagues and historians cite her as demanding, combative, and frequently unwilling to accept being treated as just another studio contract player. Her famous rivalry with Joan Crawford during the production of Whatever Happened to Baby Jane? 1962 remains a hallmark of on-set tension in film lore. Reports suggest that Crawford deliberately added weight beneath her costume to make Davis drag her further during a scene, knowing Davis suffered from back problems. Additional behind-the-scenes anecdotes include Davis's installation of a Coca-Cola machine on set, apparently as a pointed dig at Crawford, who was associated with Pepsi's board of directors. Studios at Warner Brothers and elsewhere found her stubbornness both an asset and a liability. She rejected roles she deemed beneath her, engaged in power plays over billing and screen time, and insisted on creative control even when the system discouraged it. Despite her formidable reputation, Davis remained deeply committed to her craft. Stories persist of her designing her own makeup to play the sick character in Of Human Bondage, and engineers of her later roles applaud the way she surrendered vanity to fully inhabit unflattering characters. But her unwillingness to compromise meant that even veteran crews approached her with caution. Directors admitted that working with her often required diplomacy. She could be as sharp with a producer or wardrobe chief as she was triumphant on camera. In summary, Bette Davis thrilled audiences with her magnetic, unpredictable performances and helped redefine what it meant to be a leading lady, unafraid to be flawed, intense, or angry. Yet behind the scenes, she was equally well known for her uncompromising standards, fierce rivalries, and occasional hostility. The duality of her legacy, beloved on screen, formidable off-camera, only adds to the enduring fascination she holds for film historians and fans alike. Joan Crawford. Joan Crawford rose to prominence in the 1930s and 1940s as one of Hollywood's most glamorous, resilient, and bankable stars. She transformed from her early days as Lucille Lesueur into a screen icon, known for strong-willed women in films such as Mildred Pierce, 1945. On screen, she embodied ambition and poise, becoming a major box office draw and a model of studio-era star refinement. Yet behind that public persona lived a highly competitive performer whose off-screen interactions often carried tension and unease among peers and crew. The most famous illustration of this is her involvement with Bette Davis in the film Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, 1962. The production has become legendary for its clashes. Reports claim Crawford, aware of Davis's back problems, wore a weighted belt under her costume during a scene where Davis had to drag her character across the floor. Meanwhile, Davis is said to have installed a Coke dispenser in Crawford's dressing room, a pointed jab, since Crawford's late husband was a Pepsi executive. These actions underline the intensity of the rivalry and how Crawford's offset maneuvers fed into a backstage atmosphere rife with competition and resentment. Crawford's on-set personality could be both demanding and cautious. Crew accounts describe her as meticulous about presentation and image, while simultaneously guarded and often combative. Though the public may have seen her as poised and controlled, the private reality was that many of her colleagues treated her with a mixture of deference and caution. For instance, the sources show that even when accepting prestigious roles and honors, Crawford maintained a tight control over her image, often engaging in indirect power plays and prestige warfare. Despite the behind-the-scenes strain, the studio system often cast Crawford precisely because her glamorous reputation and intensity sold tickets. The duality of her image, charismatic star, and formidable co-worker added to her mystique. In the end, Joan Crawford remains a figure of enduring fascination. She was a beloved screen presence, yet one whose behind-the-scenes behavior earned respect and fear among her peers. The true legacy of her career is not only the films she made, but the forceful personality she brought to Hollywood's golden age. Mickey Rooney. Mickey Rooney impressed audiences as a vibrant child star, full of boundless energy and charm. From his early vaudeville beginnings to his breakthrough in the Andy Hardy films of the late 1930s, he seemed to represent the cheerful, all-American young performer whose smiling face lit up the screen. But beneath this radiant on-screen persona lay a far more complicated and volatile off-camera life. Despite his public image of wholesomeness, Rooney became notorious behind the scenes for emotional turbulence and unsteady behavior. Accounts from those who worked with him describe him as abrupt, sometimes harsh and impatient, qualities at odds with the silly grin viewers saw on screen. For example, during the production of National Velvet 1944, a young co-star claimed Rooney's attitude turned dismissive, even cruel toward her. His countless marriages, romantic affairs, and later revelations of substance use, gambling, and bizarre business dealings only added to the off-screen tension. Rooney's career trajectory mirrored his inner turmoil. Having achieved massive popularity, He was one of the top box office draws of his time. His fortunes shifted badly as he aged. Studios found him harder to manage, his finances crumbled, and by the 1960s he had declared bankruptcy. Late in life, despite occasional returns to stage and screen, Rooney revealed that he had battled bipolar disorder and suffered emotional and financial distress that haunted him for decades. Working with Rooney often meant navigating a minefield of contradictions. On one hand, he could charm, sing, dance, and entertain with seemingly effortless brilliance. On the other hand, co-workers reported quick mood swings, impulsive decisions, and a sense that the actor's personal demons spilled into his professional downtime. Some crew remembered being cautious around his trailer, uncertain whether the cheerful star they booked would be the same one walking into the next take. In sum, Mickey Rooney's legacy is one of extremes. He enthralled moviegoers with his boundless enthusiasm and talent, yet behind the scenes he wrestled with instability, excess, and the pressure of a star system that may have consumed him. The contrast between the youthful hero on screen and the troubled man off it remains stark. And it is this duality that continues to fascinate and unsettle film historians. He remains in many ways the mirror image of his cheery on-screen self, beloved and big-hearted yet complicated, wounded and unpredictable. Ingrid Bergman. Ingrid Bergman built her legacy on screen as a figure of pure grace, elegance, and emotional truth. She earned international acclaim with films such as Casablanca 1942 and Notorious 1946. In which she portrayed virtuous, dignified women whose moral strength seemed effortless. The public embraced her as a model of refined beauty and integrity, and her performances were widely regarded as heartfelt, sincere, and timeless. But behind that luminous on-screen presence lay a far more troubled and controversial private life. In the late 1940s, Bergman embarked on a relationship with Italian director Roberto Rossellini, while still married to Swedish-American neurosurgeon Petter Lindström. Their affair erupted into public scandal when Bergman became pregnant and the couple later married, actions that flew head-on into the social norms of the era. The backlash in the United States was sharp. She was denounced on the floor of the U.S. Senate, labeled a powerful influence for evil by Senator Edwin Johnson. For a time, Bergman was effectively blacklisted from major Hollywood work, and her reputation in America suffered. She received thousands of letters condemning her as immoral, un-American, and worse for stepping outside the facade of purity that her star image had built. Professionally, she moved to Europe, worked in a series of films with Rossellini, and only gradually rebuilt her Hollywood standing. Working with Bergman on set did not always reflect the gentle persona that appeared on screen. While many praised her for serious commitment to her craft, others noted that her involvement with Rossellini and the attendant media storm made her less available to studio demands, less constrained by the traditional star system. The scandal meant she was no longer the safe star studios once relied on, and she began exercising more control over her roles and career decisions. In sum, Ingrid Bergman is a compelling example of the duality often found in Hollywood's golden age, celebrated for her on-screen virtue, yet at risk and judged for her off-screen life. She remains admired for her talent, but her private decisions remind us how the Hollywood star image often masked complicated realities. Cary Grant. Born Archibald Alexander Leach in England, Cary Grant reinvented himself in Hollywood with roles in films like The Philadelphia Story 1940 and North by Northwest 1959. On screen, he appeared effortless, witty, confident, elegant, and audiences admired his combination of sophistication and approachability. Behind that polished exterior, however, was a man grappling with deep insecurities, emotional complexity, and personal troubles. Grant's childhood was marked by trauma. His mother was institutionalized and he was told she had died, only learning the truth decades later. On the set of Blonde Venus 1932, working under director Joseph von Sternberg, Grant reportedly faced harsh treatment, with von Sternberg demanding a change in his hair parting and exposing his discomfort. In his adult life, Grant's relationships and private behaviors revealed layers of complexity. Multiple marriages, rumors of hidden sexuality or fluid desires, and a consistent effort to maintain control over his image and life. Biographies describe his struggle with imposter syndrome, perfectionism, and a persistent search for approval. Work-wise, while he rarely generated the kind of production chaos associated with some of his contemporaries, Grant's professionalism covered a lot of internal tension. Some document his arguments with directors, or his dissatisfaction with being typecast. Though these incidents are less dramatic than public scandals, yet they speak to a private man striving for authenticity behind the man everyone saw as effortless. Ultimately, Cary Grant's legacy is twofold: beloved as a film star for his charm and style, yet more complicated in real life. His on-screen persona suggested ease and confidence, but off-screen, the man behind the name navigated trauma, ambition, identity, and image. That contrast makes him one of the most enduring and mysterious figures of classic Hollywood. Which of these stories caught you off guard? Share your thoughts below. And remember to like and subscribe for more hidden sides of Hollywood history.